Welcome to today's topic. We're going to talk about a very common fear that people have, that women have when they start an intuitive eating journey or they're even thinking about doing intuitive eating. Maybe you are very intrigued by what I've been sharing about intuitive eating. Maybe you are very interested in it, but you are scared. All right, you are scared that you're never going to stop eating. Have you had this fear? I know that when I started intuitive eating, I had this fear, and just so you know, it's a very common fear to experience. When we have a history of modifying our eating, either restricting things, restricting the types of food, restricting the amount of food, limiting when we can eat, how much, etc., what that does is it creates a lot of feelings of deprivation. And so then we experience episodes where we lose control with food. We go overboard. Just so you know, this is very normal because of primal hunger. Your body needs food to survive. You know, your body doesn't need caffeine, it doesn't need alcohol, it doesn't need, a plethora of other substances, but it does need food. This is why food addiction isn't real, and there's many other explanations for why you experience cravings for food or desire for food. So it's important that you first understand that it's your restrictive past that has actually caused you to have overeating and out of control eating. So you also probably don't fully trust yourself around food at this point, and you probably don't fully trust your interactions with certain types of food. So maybe you would never overeat kale, but you feel that you would lose control around sugar. And this is very common, and then it's very common to label yourself like a sugar addict, which I used to think I was. And look, if you're there, it's okay. It's all part of your healing journey to recover your intuitive eater and tap into it's actually not the truth that I'm a sugar addict. It's just that I haven't given myself true permission to eat what I want. So when you have this fear that you're never going to stop eating, there's a couple things that you need to kind of think about or understand. The first thing is that your body has a set point. It has a set point where it wants to be with your weight and your size. It has a set point in just there's a limited capacity to your stomach, right? Your stomach typically holds 2 to 3 cups of food at a time. Yes, it can stretch and expand, but there will be a point where if you eat more food, you will feel uncomfortable. You will go from feeling pleasantly full to unpleasantly full. You will have an unpleasant stimulus in your body. And so it's important to understand that your body does have a limited biological need for food. Your stomach has a limited size. And you also will have a limited appetite for food. I don't know about you, but there comes a point where if you've had, certain amount of food, you're just done, right? You're kind of no longer interested in the food. And that is because biologically, your hormones are signaling to your body that you've had enough food. So part of what you need to do is just you have to kind of take a breath and be I can trust my body again. Part of what dieting does is it disconnects us from our bodies. And so then we learn not to trust our bodies, and we learn to not trust what's intuitively right inside of us. And we go to external sources to try to tell us what and how to eat. And so when you fully tune into your body and how you feel, you won't overeat out of control. You will eventually stop eating. There will be a moment where you're I'm done with this particular food. I'm done eating. I want to do something else. Now, part of your healing journey, depending on how restrictive your eating has been, how long you've been dieting, also how entrenched your diet thinking is, your diet mentality, what's your community like? Are the people around you also entrenched in diet thinking? All of those things can impact how long it's going to take you to fully recover. So you do need to be patient with yourself in the process and understand that healing takes time. I read this amazing book by this author named Stephanie Schaefer, and her book is all about how she and her family went to the Caribbean, and they went on a boat, and they just were going for a fun vacation thing, and the boat blew up. There was an explosion, and she lost both her legs. And she details her healing journey over a period of years, right, that it took her body to heal from a traumatic injury. And I remember that anytime I feel impatient with my own healing journey, right? Because it's a lifelong practice. And I think just giving yourself patience and grace and self-compassion, that like, hey, this is going to take some time, all right? And that's okay. Another thing you need to understand is if you are coming from yo-yo dieting your whole life, then you are disconnected from eating foods that you truly like and enjoy. You have a history of not fully eating foods that you actually find satisfying. When you actually eat foods that are satisfying, you will feel very content with smaller portions. Part of the reason you find yourself overeating or binge eating or out of control eating is because you're not experiencing true satisfaction in the meals that you are eating. So this leads you to eat more volume of a food in order to try to find satisfaction. The problem is you still don't feel satisfied, right? And you find yourself just eating more and more of a food. And that is because you're still not eating foods that you find truly satisfying. One of my big breakthroughs, even just recently, right? Because the cool thing about intuitive eating is you will continue this self-discovery process ongoingly. And one day you'll be like, oh, I don't even really like chocolate chip cookies. I thought they were like my favorite thing on planet Earth. And like, they're not as exciting to me as I thought anymore. Or you might discover that like, wow, I really love ranch, but I've just never let myself eat it. So I didn't even know how much I liked ranch. And one of the things I've discovered is how much I love Caesar salad. But I don't like Caesar salad with low-fat Caesar dressing. It just doesn't do it for me. And I have found that I also really like there to be a lot of Parmesan and dressing all over the lettuce leaves. Like, it's just so tasty and satisfying. But guess what? Because I allow myself to eat Caesar salad whenever I want, and I can eat it multiple times a day, and I can eat the full-fat version, I find myself actually being satisfied with a very small portion, right? Like, this much is very satisfying to me. Because another thing that happens in intuitive eating is you want to feel good in your body. Once you start allowing yourself to eat all foods, you stop eating things that you do not like. Like, you will throw things out. You'll be like, I don't want any more of that. Like, no, thank you. Not for me. Like, you will really become very tuned into what you want, and you will just have an aversion to eating things that are not satisfying, which is really healthy and how it should be. So you just need to remember that, like, when you are eating foods that truly satisfy you, you will stop overeating, okay? Now, there's a couple things that you need to know about. One is you need to know about habituation, which if you've listened to me talk about intuitive eating, you've probably heard me mention habituation. And this is just the process through, it's really a form of exposure therapy. Habituation is a form of exposure therapy that helps you no longer have strong emotional reactions to food. Just like if you got exposed to something you were fearing, like flying or snakes, which are my fear, okay? If you got exposed to that over and over again, you would no longer have the same physiological and psychological response to your fear. It would get less and less. That is how exposure therapy works. Habituation is a form of exposure therapy with food. So you expose yourself to a food that you've either been scared of, that you've forbidden, that you've made off limits, that you feel out of control around, that you think you're addicted to, whatever, right? You pick one of those foods and you allow yourself to eat it as much as you want over and over and over again. And what happens is you eventually habituate the food. This isn't about becoming sick of the food. It's about the food becoming neutral for you. We want the, cheesecake to be equal to the broccoli in our minds, all right? We want the brownies to be equal to the salad. And I promise you that this will happen. And this will break and dismantle that belief you have that you're a sugar addict. Because you'll realize that, yeah, you do enjoy a cookie, but like what you're actually craving today is like chicken salad, all right? And then you'll be like, oh, I'm not a sugar addict. Okay, that was just because I was dieting and restricting for so many years and cut out sugar to try to keep my body smaller, all right? So you have to learn how to habituate foods. You have to do it in a way that feels safe. It really helps to have guidance during habituation. I believe it was the hardest part of my intuitive eating journey was habituation, because you're facing a fear over and over and over again. And each time you pick a new food, it's scary. You don't have to habituate every single food on the planet or every single food that you're scared of in order to heal this. Eventually, you'll just understand that you truly can eat whatever you want. So you don't have to habituate every single flavor of ice cream, every single flavor of cookies, every single flavor of cake. But you have to habituate enough foods that you've made off limits where you start to truly understand and believe that like you have full permission to eat whatever you want and you can trust yourself around all those foods. Another thing you need to finally get, if you're scared of doing intuitive eating because you're scared you're just going to overeat, you just have to start to really come to grips with the fact that like dieting has failed you. It has either failed you physically or it's failed you psychologically or it's failed you both. You have either lost the weight and regained it. You've either lost the weight and now you have to be super restrictive and or super purging, right? Which I'll explain in a minute. You either have to be one of those two things in order to maintain your weight or the same, all right? So it's impacted you negatively because you've lost muscle tissue, you've disrupted your hormones, you've interrupted your menstrual cycle, you have created insomnia for yourself, you're not recovering from workouts well. Like there's a whole host of physical consequences to dieting. Psychologically, there's consequences that are not working for you. If you're here listening to this, you are somebody who is starting to experience that dieting is not working for you. If it worked, you would have just done it and moved on with your life and you wouldn't ever have to think about this area of your life again, okay? If you're still struggling with this area, it means that you have not actually found the thing that frees you. You are still being negatively affected by dieting. So you have to really get that like dieting just doesn't work, all right? And the thing can take a while to sink in, okay? If you're new to dieting, if it's your first diet, you will experience greater success than it's if your fourth diet. But I really want you to reflect and truly ask yourself if dieting has truly worked for you long term, okay? So in order for you to be willing to take that step into what you're scared of, like, will I ever stop eating? Like, you have to really be done and tired with dieting behaviors. You just have to be done with it. You will not change until the pain of not changing outweighs what you're currently doing. You have to be willing to like admit to yourself that I'm just done. I'm tired. I don't want to live the rest of my life this way. You have to ask yourself, how much more of your life do you want to spend this way? How much more of your life do you want to spend trying to shrink your body or keep your body small? Is that a goal that is worthy of your time and energy in pursuing for your life? Because I'm just telling you, it will be a battle, all right? Even if you successfully lose weight, you're going to have to battle constantly to maintain below your set point. Whatever your set point is what your body will maintain easily and naturally. When you are eating foods that you like, listening to your hunger and fullness signals, moving your body in ways that you like and that work for your lifestyle, and generally taking good care of yourself through sleep, water, avoiding drugs and alcohol excessively, things like that, okay? That's where you'll find your set point. So in my program, what you're going to understand is that there's a couple different ways to do habituation and that you have permission for how you pace yourself. If you just dive off the deep end and take all your limits off at once, which you can totally do and you have permission to do, I call that going all in. You may experience more fear, you may experience weight gain more rapidly, you may experience bloating or things like that, but it will also accelerate your healing journey with body and food, okay? So if you want to jump in the deep end, you can do that. You can also wade in, all right? You can start at the edge of the kiddie pool and walk yourself in slowly, and that is totally okay as well. And eventually you'll get into the deep end through wading in, right? We can jump in the deep end or we can wade into it. And both are completely acceptable. When you wade in slowly, it may take you longer to heal from your dieting history and dieting mentality, but it may also feel safer to you. One of the cool things about intuitive eating is it's not about following some rigid protocol or plan. It's truly you reconnecting to your inner signals and letting those guide you instead of listening to external voices. All right. I will tell you this. you can go get the intuitive eating book for $12. It's amazing. I highly recommend that you get that book, whether you work with me or not. If you do work with me, I'll send you a copy of it as part of your program. But I will tell you this. There's a big difference from reading the book and trying to do it on your own and having a guide and a coach and a counselor to help you through that and to talk to you and help you process feelings. It's kind of like the difference between reading a book about therapy and actually going to a therapist and doing therapy every week or every 2 weeks for a year. All right. I did therapy last year. I went every week for a while and then every 2 weeks, etc. And that was a lot different than just like reading a book about like how to reframe my negative thoughts, right? So while you can definitely expose yourself to the principles and start practicing them on their own, if you are someone who struggles a lot with anxiety or fear around this process, then it will really help to have a coach and a community to walk through the process with you, because it can be scary. And we know in life, when we have things that we're scared to confront, it can be really helpful to have people around us to encourage us. One of the things I love about the word encourage, the word courage is inside encourage, right? But you can only be really encouraged by other people. It's an experience you have that others give you. They give you their courage. They loan you their courage that you can take on to then confront the things that are scaring you. All right. So if you are feeling this fear, I get it. I just want you to know that you can do it. You can feel the fear of, will I ever stop eating? And you can face it. It is very helpful, like I said, to have a guide, to have a mentor to help you through this. I know for me, even as a trained nurse and a trained nutritionist, I hired a coach to help me through this journey. And I will tell you, it was so, so helpful. And even after I finished my initial journey with her, I reached out a few times to her for support because this journey is challenging. So I really recommend that you do work with a guide when you are ready. If you feel like I might be the right guide for you, then I invite you to apply for my coaching program freely. It's designed to help you eat all foods again without guilt or anxiety, to help you stop overeating and help you stop having binge episodes, take back your life from yo-yo dieting and feel good in your body, because that's what we all want, right? We want to feel good in our body and mind, and feel good in your body by mastering the 10 principles of intuitive eating. If that sounds like something that you want, applications are now open for the program. They'll just be open for a couple more weeks. We start July 25th. So go ahead and fill out the link in my Instagram bio so that you can learn more. I can learn more about you and we can take that next step together. Thanks for tuning in today. I hope this was super helpful for you. If it was, share it with a friend, share it with a mom, share it with a female coworker. I'm really committed that we get this message out to more and more women and we start to really turn the tide against the dieting mindset and mentality.